I sat in my car outside the school for 10 minutes, staring at the stack of ungraded essays on my passenger seat. 28 years old, and still finding red ink stains on my fingers at the end of every Tuesday. The engine ticked as it cooled, matching the rhythm of my exhausted heartbeat. Jessica's voice echoed in my head from our phone call 20 minutes ago. "You need to file another report, Hannah. He showed up again." She was right. Ryan had appeared in the parking lot yesterday afternoon, leaning against his silver Honda with that expression he always wore when he thought he was being charming. The restraining order meant nothing to him. 6 months since I'd ended our relationship, and he still couldn't accept that I didn't want him anywhere near me. The police had been sympathetic the first 3 times I called. By the 5th violation, I could hear the fatigue in their voices. They'd drive by, he'd disappear, and the cycle would repeat. I grabbed my bag and the essays, locking the car behind me. The November wind cut through my thin jacket as I walked across the empty lot. Most of the other teachers had left hours ago, but I'd stayed late finishing progress reports. Procrastination disguised as dedication. Really, I just hadn't wanted to go home to my empty apartment where every shadow reminded me of Ryan standing outside my window last week. My hand shook slightly as I fumbled with my keys. "Get it together, Cooper." I slid into the driver's seat and locked the doors immediately, a habit I'd developed in recent months. The interior smelled like stale coffee and the vanilla air freshener dangling from my rearview mirror. I turned the key, and the engine rumbled to life. Jessica called again as I pulled onto the main road. "Hey," I answered, tucking the phone between my shoulder and ear. "I'm heading home now." "Did you talk to the police?" "Not yet. I'll call them tomorrow." She sighed, heavy with disappointment and worry. "Hannah, this isn't going away on its own. Ryan isn't going to just stop." "I know." My throat tightened. "I just need to get home and grade these essays. I can't think about him right now." "You need to think about your safety. David and I could come stay with you for a few days if you want, just until this blows over." The offer touched me, but I couldn't accept. Jessica and her husband had already done too much, letting me crash on their couch when I first left Ryan, helping me move into my new place, screening my calls. I couldn't keep dragging them into my mess. "I'll be fine, I promise. I'll call you when I get home." "You better." We said goodbye, and I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. The road stretched ahead, wet and gleaming from earlier rainfall. Most of the traffic had cleared out, leaving just a handful of cars making their way through the darkening evening. I merged onto the route that would take me across the Willamette River, a drive I'd made hundreds of times. The Riverside Bridge appeared ahead, its old steel frame outlined against the charcoal sky. I'd always liked this bridge at night, the way the lights reflected off the water below. But tonight, something felt wrong. A tightness had settled in my chest, and I couldn't shake the sensation of being watched. "Stop being paranoid. Ryan isn't following you." Except he had followed me before. 3 weeks ago, I'd noticed his Honda trailing me for 15 minutes before he finally turned off. When I'd confronted him about it later through text, he'd claimed it was coincidence. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as I started across the bridge. The river flowed dark and churning beneath me. There were only 2 other cars visible. One far ahead, its taillights disappearing around a curve, and another a comfortable distance behind me. Then it happened. The explosion of sound came first, a violent pop that sent my heart into my throat. The car lurched violently to the left, and I instinctively yanked the wheel to the right, trying to compensate. But the vehicle didn't respond the way it should. Instead, it fishtailed, the back end swinging wide. "No, no, no," I gasped, fighting for control. The steering wheel spun uselessly in my hands. The blown tire, it had to be the front left from the way the car was pulling, made any attempt at correction futile. I slammed on the brakes, but the wet pavement offered no traction. The world became a blur of motion and panic as the car careened toward the guardrail. Metal screamed as my sedan crashed through the barrier. The rusted protection gave way like paper, and suddenly I was airborne. Time fractured into jagged pieces. My stomach dropped as gravity took hold. The dark water below rushed up to meet me, and pure survival instinct kicked in. My fingers fumbled for the seatbelt buckle. "Get out. Get out now." The belt released, and I grabbed for the door handle with one hand while bracing against the dashboard with the other. The car tilted forward, nose-diving toward the river. I shoved the door open, and icy wind slapped my face. The vehicle was falling, but I threw myself sideways, half crawling, half tumbling out of the driver's seat. My shoulder hit something hard, maybe the door frame, and then I was sliding across wet metal. The car continued its descent, and I reached desperately for anything to grab onto. My fingers closed around the edge of broken concrete where the guardrail had been. The impact jarred through my arms, nearly tearing my grip loose. I screamed. The sound ripped away by wind as my body swung beneath me. My feet dangled over nothing, over the black expanse of river waiting below. The car hit the water with a muffled crash that I felt more than heard. Cold spray exploded upward, reaching my legs. I hung there, fingers white-knuckled against the rough concrete, every muscle screaming as I tried to pull myself up. But I couldn't. I didn't have the strength. Headlights suddenly illuminated the scene. A car had stopped behind where mine had crashed through. I heard a door slam, then running footsteps. "Hold on," a male voice, deep and commanding. I couldn't turn my head to see who it was. All my focus centered on maintaining my grip. My fingers were slipping, the concrete wet and unforgiving. Then strong hands clamped around my wrists. "I've got you," the voice said, closer now. "Don't let go," as if I had a choice. The hands tightened, and I felt myself being pulled upward with shocking strength. Whoever this person was, they hauled me up like I weighed nothing. My chest scraped against the jagged edge of concrete, and then I was rolling onto solid pavement, gasping and shaking. I lay there for a moment, unable to process what had just happened. My body felt disconnected from my mind, adrenaline and shock making everything seem distant and unreal. "Are you hurt?" The voice again, urgent but controlled. I managed to turn my head. Through the haze of panic and the glare of headlights, I saw him, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in dark clothing that seemed to absorb the light. His face was shadowed, but I caught the gleam of his eyes, a warm brown that seemed almost amber in the strange illumination. "I don't know," I managed to whisper. My throat felt raw, as if I'd been screaming for hours. He knelt beside me, and I noticed his hands, still resting lightly on my arms, were steady, not shaking at all. Despite having just pulled someone from the edge of death, his face came into clearer view as he leaned closer, checking me for injuries. Strong jaw, dark hair pushed back from his forehead, an intensity in his gaze that made me feel simultaneously safer and more exposed than I'd ever been. "Can you move?" he asked. I tested my limbs, wiggling fingers and toes. Everything hurt, but nothing felt broken. "Yes, we need to get you off this bridge. Can you stand?" With his help, I struggled to my feet. My legs felt like water, barely able to support my weight. He kept one arm around my waist, supporting me effortlessly as he guided me toward his car. I caught a glimpse of it, a sleek black sedan that screamed money. Another man appeared, this one older and bulkier, emerging from the driver's side. "Boss, police will be here soon. We should move." "Boss?" The word registered dimly through my shock. "Get the door," the man holding me ordered. The driver complied immediately, opening the back door of the sedan. My rescuer helped me into the leather interior, and I sank into the seat, trembling violently now that the adrenaline was fading. He slid in beside me, and the door closed with a solid thunk that muffled the sound of approaching sirens. "Hospital," he said to the driver, "the private facility on Morrison Street, not the public one." "Wait," I protested weakly. "I should talk to the police, file a report." He turned to look at me, and in the dim light of the car's interior, I got my first clear view of him. He was maybe mid-30s, devastatingly handsome in a way that felt almost dangerous. His eyes, that unusual amber brown, studied me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "You're in shock, and possibly hypothermic. Medical attention first. The police can wait. But my car, the accident, I saw what happened. The police will recover your vehicle and investigate. Right now you need to be checked by a doctor." There was something in his tone that didn't invite argument. Not aggressive, but absolutely certain. I wanted to protest further, but exhaustion crashed over me like a wave. My body hurt in places I didn't know could hurt, and the trembling wouldn't stop. He removed his coat, a long black wool that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and draped it over my shoulders. The fabric was still warm from his body, and it smelled faintly of something expensive and woodsy. "Thank you," I whispered, pulling the coat tighter around myself. "What's your name?" he asked. "Hannah. Hannah Cooper. Hannah." The way he said my name, carefully and deliberately, sent an odd shiver through me. "I'm Franco Bellini." I should have recognized the name, should have understood what it meant, but my brain was too scrambled to connect the dots. The drive took less than 10 minutes. I watched the city lights blur past the tinted windows, trying to process what had just happened. My car was at the bottom of the Willamette River. I'd nearly died. This stranger had saved my life. "The tire?" I said suddenly, the thought breaking through the fog. "It just exploded. I don't understand. I just had the car serviced 2 days ago." They checked everything. Franco exchanged a look with his driver that I couldn't quite interpret. "Sometimes these things happen," he said, but there was something in his voice that suggested he didn't believe that at all. "Do you think someone—" I couldn't finish the sentence. It sounded paranoid even in my own head. "Do you have reason to think someone might want to hurt you?" Ryan's face flashed through my mind. The way he'd looked at me yesterday in the parking lot, that strange mixture of longing and anger, the restraining order he'd violated again and again, the text messages that bordered on threatening. "Maybe," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "My ex-boyfriend, he's been persistent since I ended things 6 months ago." Franco's expression didn't change, but something hardened in his eyes. "Persistent how?" "Showing up places he shouldn't. Following me sometimes. I have a restraining order, but he doesn't seem to care. The police say there's not much they can do unless he actually does something. And now, your tire mysteriously blows out on a bridge." Franco's tone was neutral, but I sensed anger simmering beneath the surface. "What's his name?" "Ryan Mitchell. But you don't need to." "I'm not going to do anything." "But information is power, Hannah. The more you know about a threat, the better you can protect yourself from it." The car pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a building I'd passed 100 times but never entered. The private hospital Franco had mentioned. As the driver opened my door, I realized I had no insurance that would cover this place. The panic must have shown on my face, because Franco touched my arm gently. "Don't worry about the cost. Consider it paid. I can't let you—" "You can, and you will. You nearly died tonight, and I was there to see it. Let me do this." There was no room for argument in his voice. Before I could protest further, he'd helped me out of the car and into an elevator that took us directly to what appeared to be a private floor. The doors opened to reveal a reception area that looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. A nurse appeared immediately, her face professionally concerned as she took in my bedraggled state. Within minutes, I was in a private room being examined by a doctor who spoke in calm, measured tones as he checked my vitals and examined my bruises. "Mild hypothermia, some contusions, probably going to be very sore tomorrow," he concluded. "But nothing broken. You were extremely lucky, Miss Cooper." Lucky. I suppose that was one word for it. Another word might be saved. Rescued. By a stranger who seemed to command this entire facility with just his presence. Franco had waited outside during the examination, but he returned as the doctor finished. "She'll need to stay overnight for observation," the doctor told him. "Standard protocol for hypothermia cases. Whatever she needs," Franco replied. After the doctor left, Franco pulled a chair close to my bedside. I'd been given warm blankets and dry hospital clothing, and the shaking had finally stopped. But new questions were forming, pushing through the haze of exhaustion. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "You don't know me." "Because you needed help, and I was in a position to provide it." "Does there need to be more reason than that? Most people would have just called 911. "I'm not most people." He leaned back in the chair, studying me with that same intensity from earlier. "Besides, the nearest public hospital is 20 minutes from that bridge. You needed immediate attention." "Thank you," I said again, feeling the inadequacy of those 2 words. I don't know how I can ever repay you. You don't need to repay me. Just rest and recover. Tomorrow we can worry about the police report and recovering your belongings from the car, if anything survived. The mention of tomorrow made reality sink in deeper. I'd almost died tonight. Someone might have tried to kill me, and this stranger, this Franco Bellini, had pulled me back from the edge. Who are you? I asked quietly. Really? He was quiet for a long moment, and I wondered if he'd answer. Finally, he spoke. Someone who happened to be in the right place at the right time. For now, that's all you need to know. It wasn't an answer, but exhaustion was winning the battle against my curiosity. My eyelids felt impossibly heavy, and the warm blankets were pulling me toward sleep despite my racing thoughts. Rest, Hannah, Franco said, his voice softer now. You're safe here, I promise. And strangely, impossibly, I believed him. As I drifted toward unconsciousness, the last thing I saw was Franco's amber eyes watching over me, and the last thing I felt was an odd certainty that my life had just changed in ways I couldn't yet understand. Sunlight filtered through cream-colored curtains when I opened my eyes, painting golden rectangles across unfamiliar walls. For a disoriented moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then the events of last night crashed back, and I sat up too quickly, my bruised body protesting the movement. The private hospital room looked nothing like any medical facility I'd ever seen. More like an upscale hotel suite with its plush armchair, mahogany side table, and abstract artwork on the walls. The monitor beside my bed beeped steadily, tracking vitals I couldn't interpret. An IV drip fed clear liquid into my arm, the needle secured with medical tape that pulled at my skin. My phone. I needed my phone. I scanned the room frantically until I spotted it on the table beside a vase of fresh white lilies. Someone had retrieved it from my car or found it on the bridge. I reached for it, wincing as muscles I'd forgotten existed made themselves known. 17 missed calls from Jessica. 23 text messages. Most from her. A few from other concerned friends who must have heard somehow. I scrolled through Jessica's messages, watching them escalate from worry to panic. Where are you? Call me back. Hannah, seriously, you said you'd call when you got home. I'm starting to get worried. David's ready to drive around looking for you. The last one had come at 2 a.m. I called the police. They said there was an accident on Riverside Bridge. Please tell me that wasn't you. I dialed her number before I could second-guess the decision. She answered on the first ring. Hannah? Oh my God, are you okay? Where are you? I'm fine, I said, though my voice sounded rough and strained. I'm at a hospital. There was an accident, but I'm okay. Just bruised. What hospital? I'll come right now. David and I have been up all night. I glanced at the door, half expecting Franco or one of his people to appear and stop me from giving out information, but the hallway beyond remained quiet. Morrison Street. It's a private facility. I'm in room... I checked the small placard by the door. 314. We'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't move. As if I could go anywhere. After she hung up, I tried to piece together what I knew. My car was at the bottom of the Willamette River. The tire had blown out, sending me through a guardrail that should have been stronger. Franco Bellini had pulled me from the edge, brought me here, and paid for everything without asking for my insurance information. The door opened, and a nurse entered, carrying a breakfast tray that looked catered rather than hospital-issued. Fresh fruit, yogurt, granola, and coffee that smelled expensive. Good morning, Miss Cooper, she said with a professional smile. How are you feeling? Sore. Confused. When can I leave? The doctor will be in shortly to evaluate you. Your vitals have been stable all night, which is encouraging. She set the tray on a wheeled table and positioned it within my reach. Mr. Bellini asked us to notify him when you woke. Would you like me to do that? The question felt loaded with implications I couldn't quite grasp. Is he still here? He left around 3 this morning, but asked to be informed of any changes in your condition. Of course he did. I picked at the fruit, my appetite non-existent despite the quality of the food. The nurse checked my IV, made notes on a tablet, and left me alone with my thoughts. Franco Bellini. The name tugged at something in my memory. A half-forgotten news article, or snippet of conversation. But exhaustion and medication made it impossible to focus. All I could remember clearly were his amber eyes and the certainty in his voice when he'd promised I was safe. Jessica burst through the door exactly 19 minutes later, David right behind her. She looked like she'd aged 5 years overnight. Her red hair pulled into a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. "Oh my God," she breathed, rushing to my bedside. "When I saw the news this morning about a car in the river, I thought, I'm okay," I repeated, letting her hug me despite the protests from my ribs. "Really, just banged up." David stood at the foot of the bed, his expression grim. At 31, Jessica's husband had the kind of steady, reliable presence that made you feel safe. Right now he looked ready to fight someone. "What happened?" he asked. "The news said a vehicle crashed through the guardrail, but they haven't released any details." I told them everything. The phone call with Jessica, the drive home, the sudden tire blowout, hanging from the bridge's edge. I described Franco's rescue in detail, watching their faces shift from relief to confusion to suspicion. "Wait," Jessica interrupted. "This guy just happened to be behind you, pulled you up, and then brought you to a private hospital? He didn't call an ambulance? He said the public hospital was too far away." David's frown deepened. "Morrison Street Private is where politicians and CEOs go when they need discretion. It's not exactly a trauma center." "It has excellent facilities," I defended, though I wasn't sure why I felt the need to justify Franco's decision. "They've taken good care of me." "I'm sure they have." Jessica sat on the edge of my bed, taking my hand. "But who is this Franco Bellini? Did you get his contact information? We need to thank him properly." Before I could answer, the door opened again. I expected the doctor, but instead, a man in his late 40s entered, dressed in a sharp gray suit. He had the kind of face that revealed nothing, weathered and cautious. "Miss Cooper," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent I couldn't place. "I'm Joseph Caruso, head of security for Mr. Bellini. I hope I'm not interrupting." Jessica and David exchanged glances. "Security?" Jessica asked. Joseph pulled a tablet from his briefcase, not acknowledging her question. "I've been investigating the incident last night. With your permission, I'd like to discuss what we've found." "We?" I asked. "Mr. Bellini asked me to look into the circumstances of your accident. He was concerned about some of the details." David stood straighter. "Shouldn't the police be handling this?" "The police are conducting their own investigation, of course. But Mr. Bellini has resources they don't." Joseph tapped his tablet, bringing up images. "These are from traffic cameras on Riverside Bridge, captured approximately 30 minutes before your vehicle crashed through the guardrail." He turned the screen toward me. The image showed a car pulled over on the shoulder of the bridge, hazard lights blinking. The license plate was covered, deliberately obscured with what looked like mud or paint. This vehicle was stationary for approximately 8 minutes before driving away. Shortly after it departed, you entered the bridge. He swiped to another image, this one showing debris on the road that I'd been too focused on driving to notice. These are consistent with industrial nail strips, the kind used in controlled tire punctures. My stomach dropped. "Someone sabotaged the bridge." "Someone sabotaged your route," Joseph corrected. "The debris was concentrated in the right lane, exactly where you'd be driving based on your typical patterns." "Wait," David interjected. "How do you know her typical patterns?" Joseph met his gaze without flinching. "Mr. Bellini is thorough. Once he learned about the restraining order against your ex-boyfriend, he had me pull together background information to assess potential threats." Jessica stood abruptly. "He's been investigating Hannah, without her knowledge?" "He's been protecting her," Joseph corrected, his tone mild but firm. "There's a difference." The room felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. I should have been angry, violated by the invasion of privacy. Instead, a cold certainty settled in my chest. "Ryan did this. He tried to kill me. We can't prove that yet," Joseph said. "But the evidence strongly suggests premeditation. The nail strips were placed and removed, leaving minimal trace. The guardrail you crashed through had been deliberately weakened. Metal cut partially through so it would fail under impact." Jessica sank back onto the bed, her face pale. This wasn't just road rage or an accident. This was planned. Extensively planned, Joseph agreed. Whoever did this knew your schedule, knew which route you'd take, and had the time and resources to prepare the trap. The police, I said weakly. Have you told them? We've shared what we found. They're examining the vehicle, though recovery from the river may have compromised evidence. He swiped to another set of images. However, we managed to locate these before the city's recovery team arrived. The photos showed metallic fragments, twisted and sharp. The remnants of industrial nail strips photographed in situ before they could be washed away or lost. David moved closer, studying the images. This is solid evidence. They can trace where these were purchased, look for witnesses. We're already doing that, Joseph said. Mr. Bellini has contacts throughout the city. We'll find answers faster than official channels. Why? The question burst out of me. Why is Franco doing all this? He doesn't know me. We're complete strangers. Joseph's expression softened slightly. The first crack in his professional facade. Mr. Bellini believes in protecting people who can't protect themselves. When he witnessed your accident and learned about the circumstances, he felt responsible isn't the right word. Invested, perhaps, in ensuring this doesn't happen again. That sounds like more than just good Samaritan behavior, Jessica said, suspicion clear in her voice. Mr. Bellini is not a typical businessman, Joseph acknowledged. His methods may seem unconventional, but his intentions are genuine. A knock at the door interrupted the tension. The doctor entered, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and efficient movements. Miss Cooper, I need to conduct your discharge examination. If your visitors could step outside for a few minutes? Jessica hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave me alone with Joseph. I nodded reassuringly. It's okay, I'll be fine. After they'd filed into the hallway, the doctor performed a thorough check of my injuries. The bruising was spectacular, purples and yellows blooming across my ribs and shoulders, but nothing was broken. The mild hypothermia had resolved overnight. You're extremely fortunate, she said, helping me sit up. Given the height of that bridge and the temperature of the water, this could have ended very differently. When can I leave? Within the hour, if you have somewhere safe to go and someone to stay with you for the next 24 hours. You shouldn't be alone. Jessica and David returned as the doctor finished her notes. Joseph had disappeared, apparently deciding discretion was appropriate during the medical examination. You're staying with us, Jessica announced before I could suggest otherwise. No arguments. David already called the school and told them you'd be taking a few sick days. Relief and guilt warred in my chest. You guys have already done so much. We're doing what friends do, David said firmly. Besides, until they catch whoever did this, you shouldn't be in your apartment alone. The door opened again, and this time Franco Bellini entered. He looked different in daylight, less like a shadow and more like a man. His dark suit was perfectly tailored. His hair still damp as if he'd recently showered. Those amber eyes found mine immediately, and I felt the same strange jolt of connection from last night. Hannah, he said, my name sounding different in his mouth than anyone else's. I'm glad to see you're recovering well. Jessica positioned herself between us, protective instincts on full display. You must be Mr. Bellini. We want to thank you for saving Hannah's life. No thanks necessary. His attention remained on me, though he acknowledged Jessica with a slight nod. Joseph briefed you on what we found. He did, I confirmed. It's a lot to process. Franco moved closer, ignoring the tension radiating from my friends. I know this is overwhelming. You've been through a traumatic experience, and now you're learning it was deliberate. But I want you to understand something important. He pulled a chair close to my bedside, sitting so we were at eye level. The intimacy of the gesture wasn't lost on anyone in the room. You're not safe going back to your normal life right now. Whoever did this, whether it's your ex-boyfriend or someone else, they're still out there. They failed once. They might try again. The police will protect her, David said, though his tone lacked conviction. Franco's expression remained neutral. The police will do what they can within their limitations. I can offer something more comprehensive. Such as? Jessica's voice was sharp with suspicion. I have a property outside the city. Secure, private, fully staffed. Hannah could stay there while we investigate, and until we're certain the threat has been neutralized. He looked at me again, those eyes seeing past my bruises to something deeper. I'm offering you protection, nothing more. No strings, no obligations. Just a safe place to recover. That's very generous, I said carefully. But I can stay with Jessica and David. Can they afford private security? Can they install bulletproof windows or employ armed guards? The questions weren't cruel, just pragmatic. I'm not suggesting your friends can't help. I'm saying I can help more. David's jaw tightened. Hannah, you don't know this man. He saved my life, I pointed out. Which we're grateful for, Jessica added quickly. But moving into his house? That's a big step. Franco stood, smoothing his suit jacket. I understand your hesitation. It's wise to be cautious. Take some time to think about it. He produced a business card, placing it on my tray table. This is my private number. Call any time, day or night. What do you get out of this? I asked suddenly. You've paid for my medical care, had your security team investigate, and now you're offering me a place to stay. What's your angle? For the first time, something like respect flickered in his expression. Direct. I appreciate that. He considered his words carefully. I'm a businessman who deals with complicated situations. When I see someone in danger, someone who deserves better than what life has dealt them, I have the resources to help. That's my angle. The satisfaction of making a difference. It wasn't the whole truth. I could see that in the way he held himself. The careful choice of words. But it wasn't entirely a lie either. I'll think about it, I said. That's all I ask. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Joseph will be maintaining surveillance on potential threats. If your ex-boyfriend or anyone else approaches you, we'll know immediately. Consider it a courtesy, given the circumstances. After he left, the three of us sat in heavy silence. Finally, Jessica spoke. There's something off about him. I can't put my finger on it, but he has money and power, David said flatly. Men like that always have angles. But I kept thinking about the way Franco had looked at me, not with pity or condescension, but with something that felt almost like recognition, as if he'd seen something in me worth protecting beyond simple charity. The nurse returned with discharge papers and a bag containing my salvaged belongings from last night. My purse, miraculously dry inside a waterproof compartment. My keys. And at the bottom, a note written in precise handwriting. The offer stands as long as you need it. Stay safe, Hannah. There was no signature, but I knew who'd written it. I folded the note and tucked it into my pocket, ignoring the questioning looks from my friends. Whatever Franco Bellini was, whatever his true motivations, he'd given me something precious last night beyond just saving my life. He'd given me the certainty that I wasn't alone in this fight. And right now, with someone out there who wanted me dead, that knowledge felt more valuable than anything else. I called Franco on the third day. Jessica and David had been wonderful hosts, letting me take over their guest room, and never once complaining about the disruption to their lives. But I could see the strain. David kept checking the locks obsessively. Jessica jumped every time a car door slammed outside. They were afraid, and it was my fault for bringing danger to their doorstep. The business card Franco had given me felt heavy in my pocket as I dialed. He answered on the second ring. Hannah. Not a question. He'd known it was me. I'd like to take you up on your offer, if it's still available. Of course. When would you like to move in? The directness caught me off guard. No questions about why I'd changed my mind. No gloating that I'd come around. Just immediate acceptance. Tomorrow. I don't have much to pack. I'll send a car at 10. Text me the address. After we hung up, I found Jessica in the kitchen, staring at her laptop, but not really seeing the screen. She looked up when I entered, worry etched in the lines around her eyes. I'm going to stay with Franco for a while, I said, before I could lose my nerve. Her expression shifted through several emotions before settling on resignation. You're sure about this? No. But staying here puts you and David at risk. At least at Franco's place, there's actual security. What do we really know about him, Hannah? Joseph mentioned he's not a typical businessman. What does that even mean? I'd been wondering the same thing. Franco Bellini had money, influence, and resources that went beyond what any legitimate entrepreneur should possess. But he'd also saved my life and was offering protection when I desperately needed it. I don't know. I admitted. But right now, he's the only option that doesn't put innocent people in danger. Jessica stood and pulled me into a tight hug. Call me every day. Promise me. I promise. Her voice softened. After what happened on that bridge, I can't blame you for choosing the place with guards and gates. Just don't let him decide who you are, okay? David drove me to Franco's estate the next morning. The property sat 20 minutes outside Portland, hidden behind stone walls and mature trees that blocked it from the road. A guard checked our identification at the gate before waving us through. The driveway wound through manicured grounds, past gardens that must have required a full-time staff to maintain. The house itself was a colonial-style mansion that managed to feel both imposing and welcoming. Cream-colored stone, black shutters, and a portico entrance that suggested old money rather than new wealth. Jesus, David muttered, pulling to a stop in the circular drive. This place is massive. A woman in her 50s emerged from the front door, smiling warmly. She had the kind of face that invited trust, laugh lines around her eyes and silver threading through her dark hair. You must be Hannah, she said, approaching my side of the car. I'm Maria. I manage the household. Mr. Bellini asked me to show you around and make sure you have everything you need. I grabbed my single duffel bag from the back seat, feeling pathetically unprepared for whatever this was. David walked me to the door, his expression skeptical and protective. You call if you need anything, he said quietly. Anytime, day or night. We'll come get you. I will. Thank you for everything. After David drove away, Maria led me inside. The entrance hall alone was larger than my apartment, with polished hardwood floors and a staircase that curved up to the second floor. But it wasn't ostentatious. Family photos lined the walls, and fresh flowers filled a vase on a side table. Mr. Bellini is in the city handling business, Maria explained as we walked. But he wanted me to make sure you're comfortable. I'll show you to your room. She led me upstairs and down a hallway lined with closed doors. My room was at the end, spacious and bright with windows overlooking the gardens. A queen bed dominated the space, dressed in soft linens. A private bathroom connected through a door on the left. This is beautiful, I said, setting my bag on the bed. Mr. Bellini said to give you the blue room. It gets the best morning light. Maria moved to the windows, adjusting the curtains. The house has security, but you're free to move around as you please. Kitchen, library, gardens, all available. Dinner is usually at 7 if Mr. Bellini is home, but I can bring something to your room if you prefer. Thank you, Maria. This is more than generous. She smiled gently. Mr. Bellini is a good man, whatever else people might say about him. You're safe here, Hannah. After she left, I unpacked my meager belongings and tried to settle in. The room felt like a luxury hotel, not quite real. I tested the bed, soft but supportive, and explored the bathroom, which had a clawfoot tub and the kind of expensive toiletries I'd only seen in magazines. Eventually, restlessness drove me downstairs. I wandered through the main floor, taking in the formal living room, the study lined with books, the dining room that could seat 12. Everything was tasteful, expensive, but lived in. Not a showpiece, but an actual home. I found my way to the back of the house, where French doors opened onto a stone patio. Beyond that stretched the gardens I'd seen from my window. I stepped outside, breathing in the November air, crisp and clean. That's when I heard it. Church bells, distant but clear. Following the sound, I walked through the garden along a path lined with late-season roses. The bells grew louder until I reached a small building tucked among the trees. A chapel, its white stucco walls and simple cross unmistakable. The door stood slightly ajar. I hesitated, feeling like an intruder, then pushed it open quietly. The interior was simple but beautiful. Wooden pews, stained glass windows that cast colored light across the floor, and at the front, an altar with a crucifix. And kneeling before that altar, head bowed in prayer, was Franco Bellini. He wore dark pants and a white shirt, the sleeves rolled to his elbows. His hands were clasped, lips moving silently. I'd never seen anyone pray with such intensity, such complete focus. It was intimate in a way that made me feel I shouldn't be watching. I started to back out, but a floorboard creaked under my foot. Franco's head lifted, and he turned to look at me. For a moment, Neither of us spoke. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You're not interrupting." He stood with fluid grace, crossing himself before walking down the aisle toward me. "I'm glad you found this place. It's open to you any time. You have your own chapel." My grandmother insisted when my father built this house. She said no home was complete without a place to pray. He gestured to the pews. "Walk with me?" We sat in the second row, the silence comfortable rather than awkward. I studied the stained glass, the way light fractured through the colored panes. "Maria said you're in the city often," I ventured. "Business requires my attention, but I try to be home for evening prayer." He glanced at me. "Does this surprise you, that I'm religious?" "A little. Most people I know who go to church do it on Sundays for an hour. This seems different. Faith isn't something you do once a week. It's how you live, the choices you make, the person you try to be." His expression turned contemplative. Even when those choices are complicated, there was weight behind those words, a story I didn't yet know. I wanted to ask what he meant. What kind of business required armed security and private investigators? But fear held me back. Sometimes ignorance felt safer than truth. "Thank you for letting me stay here," I said instead. "You don't need to thank me. This is the right thing to do." We sat in silence for a while longer before Franco checked his watch. "I should let you settle in. If you need anything, Maria can help." "And Hannah?" He waited until I met his eyes. "You can go anywhere on the property. Consider this your home while you're here." After he left, I remained in the chapel, trying to reconcile the man who prayed with such devotion with the man who commanded such obvious power. The contradiction fascinated and frightened me in equal measure. Dinner that evening was surprisingly casual. Maria had prepared pasta with a simple tomato sauce, salad, and bread that smelled like it had been baked that afternoon. Franco joined me in the smaller dining room off the kitchen, still dressed in his work clothes, but with his tie removed and collar loosened. "How was your first day?" he asked, serving himself pasta. "Surreal. Beautiful, but surreal. The adjustment takes time. You've been living in survival mode for months. Safety feels strange when you're not used to it." Yeah, the observation was too accurate. "How do you know so much about me?" Joseph's reports were thorough. But also I recognized the signs. The way you check exits, watch shadows, startle at unexpected sounds. He took a bite of pasta, considering his words. "You've been hunted. It leaves marks." Speaking from experience? Something dark flickered across his face, in a manner of speaking. We ate in silence for a moment before I gathered courage. "Joseph mentioned your business involves complicated situations. What does that mean exactly?" Franco set down his fork, giving me his full attention. "It means I operate in areas most people prefer not to think about. I provide services, solve problems, protect interests that exist outside conventional structures." "That's deliberately vague." "Yes." "Why won't you tell me the truth?" "Because once you know certain things, you can't unknow them. And I'd prefer not to burden you with information that might put you in more danger." "I'm already in danger. Ryan tried to kill me. Ryan is one threat. There are others in this world, Hannah. People who would use any connection to me as leverage. The less you know, the safer you are." It should have been frustrating, but his logic made sense. Still, curiosity gnawed at me. "Are you part of organized crime?" He studied me for a long moment. "Would it matter to your decision to stay here if I was?" I thought about it honestly. "I don't know. Probably not, since my alternative is being alone and vulnerable. But I'd like to know what I'm accepting protection from." "Fair enough." He leaned back in his chair. "I'm the head of an organization that controls certain operations in the Pacific Northwest. We don't deal in drugs or human trafficking. We handle security, arbitration, and business interests that require discretion. Some of what we do is legal. Some exists in gray areas. And yes, sometimes we use methods that would concern law enforcement." The honesty was startling. I'd expected denial or deflection, not a straightforward admission. "You're telling me you're a criminal." "I'm telling you I operate in a system parallel to the one most people live in. Whether that makes me a criminal depends on your perspective. Most perspectives would say yes." Most perspectives haven't faced the situations that require someone like me. He picked up his fork again. I'm not asking you to approve, Hannah. Just to understand that the protection I'm offering is real and effective, precisely because of what I am. We finished dinner with safer topics, Maria's cooking and the history of the estate. But Franco's confession lingered in my mind. He was a criminal who prayed daily, a man of violence and faith. The contradiction should have sent me running. Instead, it made him seem more human, more real than the mysterious savior who'd pulled me from the bridge. That night, lying in the comfortable bed in the blue room, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Quiet, measured. I held my breath until they passed, heading toward the stairs. Later, much later, I heard them return. Franco, I realized. Doing rounds, checking the house, ensuring everything was secure. I fell asleep feeling safer than I had in months, despite knowing I was under the protection of a man who operated outside the law, or perhaps because of it. In a world where someone had tried to murder me with industrial nail strips and a weakened guardrail. Maybe conventional safety was an illusion. Maybe what I needed was someone who understood danger intimately, who moved through shadows and knew how to fight back. Morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through the curtains. I showered, dressed in clean jeans and a sweater from the clothes Maria had somehow procured in my size, and made my way downstairs. The house was quiet, except for sounds from the kitchen. Following coffee's aroma, I found Franco at the table reading a newspaper, already dressed in another expensive suit. "Good morning," he said, glancing up. "There's fresh coffee and Maria left breakfast warming in the oven." I poured coffee and retrieved a plate of eggs and toast. "Do you always wake up this early?" "Habit from my father. He believed mornings were for prayer and planning." Franco folded the newspaper. "Joseph has an update on your case. He'll be here this afternoon if you're willing to meet with him." "What kind of update?" "Evidence linking your ex-boyfriend to the sabotage. And something more concerning." His expression grew serious. "The O'Sullivan organization has been making inquiries about you." "Who are the O'Sullivans?" "A rival group operating in the area. They've been looking to expand into territory I control. If they've connected you to me, they might see you as leverage." My stomach dropped. "But how would they even know about me? We only met a few days ago. You left the hospital with me. We had dinner here. In this world, information travels fast." He reached across the table, his hand covering mine briefly. "I'm telling you this not to frighten you, but so you understand why security here is necessary. Why leaving the property right now would be dangerous. So I'm trapped here. You're protected here. There's a difference. But was there really? I'd escaped Ryan's control only to accept Franco's protection, which came with its own boundaries and restrictions. The gilded cage was more comfortable, but it was still a cage. Franco seemed to read my thoughts. "I know this isn't the freedom you wanted, but it's temporary. Once we neutralize the threats, you can return to your life. What if the threats never go away? What if this is my life now?" He was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice held unexpected gentleness. "Then, we find a way to make it bearable. Together." The word hung between us, carrying implications I wasn't ready to examine. Together suggested partnership, connection, something more than just protection and gratitude. And the way Franco looked at me, with warmth tempering the intensity in his amber eyes, made my pulse quicken in a way that had nothing to do with fear. I pulled my hand away, needing distance to think clearly. "I should call Jessica. Let her know I'm settling in." "Of course. Your phone works here, though Joseph has added some security protocols to prevent tracking." After breakfast, I retreated to my room and called Jessica. She answered immediately, relief evident in her voice. "Thank God. I was starting to worry when you didn't call last night. I'm sorry. It was a long day and I crashed early." I filled her in on the estate, careful not to mention Franco's confession about his business. Some things were mine to process before sharing. "So, you're really staying there? With this man we barely know?" "For now. It's either this or put you and David at risk again." She sighed heavily. "I hate this. I hate that you're in this situation." "I know. Me too." We talked for another 20 minutes, catching up on her school news and David's work. Normal things that felt increasingly distant from my new reality. After hanging up, I noticed a text from an unknown number. Opening it, I found a message from Joseph. Meeting at 2 p.m. in Mr. Bellini's study. Be prepared for disturbing information. The warning made my hands shake slightly as I set the phone down. Whatever Joseph had discovered, it was bad. And in a world where someone had already tried to kill me once, that was saying something. 2 weeks at Franco's estate had given me a false sense of security. I fell into a rhythm. Mornings in the chapel listening to church bells. Afternoons reading in the library. Evenings sharing meals with Franco when business allowed him to be home. The bruises from the bridge had faded to yellow-green shadows, and the nightmares came less frequently. Then Jessica called with news that shattered the calm. The school needs you back, she said. Mrs. Peterson is asking when you'll return. They can't hold your position forever. I stood by the window in my room, watching security patrol the grounds. I don't know if I can come back yet. Hannah, it's been 2 weeks. You can't hide forever. The word hide stung, because it was accurate. Someone tried to kill me, Jess. I know. But you have a life, a career. You can't let Ryan take that away too. After we hung up, I found Franco in his study reviewing documents. He looked up as I entered, immediately setting aside his work. Everything all right? My school wants me back. Jessica thinks I'm hiding. Are you? The directness caught me off guard. Maybe. But I'm also staying alive. Franco stood and moved to the window beside me. Joseph has teams watching the school. If you want to return to work, we can arrange protection. Discreet protection? Because having bodyguards follow me into classrooms isn't exactly subtle. 2 people in the parking lot, plain clothes. You'd never know they were there. The offer was generous, but doubt gnawed at me. What if Ryan shows up again? Then my people will handle it before he gets within 50 feet of you. Franco's tone left no room for doubt. You don't have to decide today, but I won't keep you prisoner here, Hannah. This is meant to be sanctuary, not a cage. I made the decision that night and called the school the next morning. Mrs. Peterson, my principal, sounded relieved. We've missed you, Hannah. The substitute has been struggling with your AP students. Monday arrived cold and bright. Franco insisted on driving me himself, rather than sending his usual driver. We rode in comfortable silence until we reached the school parking lot. Text me when classes end, he said. I'll pick you up personally. You don't have to do that. I want to. His amber eyes held mine. Be careful today. The school felt simultaneously familiar and alien. Students rushed past chattering about weekend plans. Teachers gathered around the coffee machine in the break room. Jessica spotted me immediately and pulled me into a tight hug. Thank God. I was starting to think you'd never come back. Neither was I admitted. My first 3 periods passed without incident. The students asked where I'd been, and I gave vague answers about a family emergency. By lunch, I'd almost convinced myself everything would be fine. Then I saw him. Ryan stood across the parking lot, leaning against a chain-link fence separating the school property from a public street. He wore sunglasses despite the overcast sky, but I knew he was watching me. My blood turned to ice. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and texted Franco. He's here. The response came within seconds. Don't approach. Security is moving in. Stay inside. But I couldn't move. Couldn't look away. Ryan lifted one hand in a casual wave, and the gesture felt like a threat. Jessica appeared at my elbow. Hannah? What's wrong? Ryan, by the fence. She followed my gaze, her face draining of color. We need to call the police. Franco's people are already handling it. 2 men I hadn't noticed before approached Ryan from different angles. They didn't touch him, didn't speak loudly. But Ryan's body language changed immediately. He stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. Then he was gone, disappearing down the street with Franco's security following at a distance. My phone rang. Franco's voice was tight with controlled anger. He violated the restraining order. I'm calling the police now. He didn't actually come on school property. He doesn't need to. The order specifies he can't be within 200 feet of you. That fence is maybe 100 feet from where you're standing. Police arrived 20 minutes later. I gave my statement to an officer who looked tired and skeptical, as if restraining orders were suggestions rather than legal requirements. We'll pick him up, he said without enthusiasm. But Miss Cooper, you should know these situations rarely resolve quickly. He'll post bail, and you'll be right back where you started. So what am I supposed to do? Wait for him to actually hurt me before you take this seriously? The officer's expression softened slightly. I'm on your side. But the system has limitations. My advice? Stay somewhere safe and keep your phone charged. After school, I found Franco waiting in the parking lot as promised. The look on his face when I approached made students stop and stare. There was nothing soft about him in that moment, just cold fury barely contained. Get in the car, he said quietly. We drove in silence until we left the city limits. Then Franco pulled onto a side road and parked. This can't continue, he said, still gripping the steering wheel. Ryan is escalating. The police arrested him. He'll be out by tomorrow morning, and next time he'll be smarter about it. Franco turned to face me. I need to tell you something Joseph discovered this morning. My stomach dropped. What? Ryan has been meeting with members of the O'Sullivan organization. Multiple times over the past 3 weeks. The people you said were your rivals. Yes. They've been funding him, providing resources. The tire sabotage, the surveillance. It wasn't just Ryan acting alone. The parking lot. Ryan appearing at the school. None of it had been coincidence. Why would they help him? Because they identified you as someone I care about. Someone they could use against me. The word care hung between us, loaded with implications neither of us had addressed directly. This is insane, I whispered. I met you 2 weeks ago. How could they possibly know you care about me? Franco's expression turned rueful. Because I've been obvious about it. The private hospital, bringing you to my home, personally driving you to work today. In my world, those actions speak loudly. So, I'm a target because you saved my life. You're a target because Ryan is obsessed and violent, and the O'Sullivans saw an opportunity to exploit that. He reached across and took my hand. None of this is your fault, Hannah. But it felt like my fault. My poor judgment in dating Ryan. My inability to protect myself. My acceptance of Franco's help that had painted a target on my back. What do we do now? We adapt. Increase security. Limit your exposure. And I deal with the O'Sullivans directly. Deal with them how? Franco's expression went flat. However necessary. The drive back to the estate was quiet. Both of us lost in thought. When we arrived, Franco disappeared into his study for a series of phone calls while I retreated to the library. Evening fell, and Maria brought dinner on a tray since Franco was still working. I picked at the food, appetite gone, mind replaying Ryan's wave in the parking lot. The casual arrogance of it, knowing he'd gotten under my skin. Franco found me hours later, curled in an armchair with an unread book. He looked exhausted, tie loosened and hair disheveled from running his hands through it. Joseph has people watching Ryan's apartment, he said, sitting across from me. The moment he's released, we'll know. This isn't sustainable. I can't spend my life running from him. You won't have to. Franco leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I promised to keep you safe, and I intend to honor that. But Hannah, you need to understand something. The path forward might require actions that make you uncomfortable. What kind of actions? The kind that ensure Ryan and the O'Sullivans understand you're permanently off limits. I should have been frightened by the implication. Instead, I felt something else. Relief, maybe, that someone was finally willing to fight back on my behalf. I trust you, I heard myself say. I don't know why, but I do. Franco's expression softened. That's dangerous. Trusting men like me. Maybe. But men like you are the only ones who've actually helped. He stood and offered his hand. Come with me. There's something I want to show you. I followed him through the house and out to the gardens. Night had fallen completely, stars visible above the trees. Franco led me to the chapel, its white walls glowing in the moonlight. Inside, candles flickered on the altar. Franco had been here recently, praying again. When my father died, Franco said quietly, I made promises I've spent 15 years keeping. Promises to protect the family, maintain our territory, never show weakness. He turned to face me. But tonight, in this place, I want to make a different promise. My heart hammered against my ribs. Franco, I will keep you safe, Hannah. Not because you're leverage or responsibility, but because from the moment I pulled you off that bridge, you became important to me. more important than business or territory or any promise I made to dead men. The rawness in his voice undid something in my chest. I closed the distance between us, reaching up to touch his face. He caught my hand, holding it against his cheek. "You deserve better than this," he murmured. "Better than me, better than this life. Stop telling me what I deserve. Let me decide that." Then I kissed him, not desperately like I might have after the trauma of the bridge, but deliberately, choosing him, choosing this, choosing to stop running from the one person who'd truly seen me. Franco responded with surprising gentleness, one hand cradling the back of my head, while the other wrapped around my waist. The kiss deepened slowly, building heat between us that had nothing to do with danger and everything to do with want. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Franco rested his forehead against mine. "This changes things," he said. "I know. I'm not an easy man to love, Hannah. I'm not asking for easy. I'm asking for real." He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. "Real is all I know how to give." That night, lying in my bed alone because Franco insisted we take things slowly despite the kiss, I finally understood what I'd been feeling. Safety wasn't just about security teams and reinforced windows. It was about finding someone who saw you completely, flaws and fears and broken parts, and chose to stand beside you anyway. Franco Bellini was dangerous, complicated, wrapped in violence and shadows, but he was also the man who prayed every morning, who kept his promises, who looked at me like I mattered more than anything else in his complicated world. And tomorrow, when Ryan made bail and resumed his obsessive hunt, I wouldn't face it alone. The weeks after our kiss in the chapel transformed into something I hadn't expected. Franco became both my protector and my partner. Though we moved slowly, deliberately, testing the boundaries of what we were becoming to each other, he still slept in his own room, still maintained careful distance. But the looks between us had changed, charged with possibility. I requested an extended leave from school. Mrs. Peterson granted it reluctantly after I explained the ongoing safety concerns. Jessica called every few days, her worry evident even through the phone. "You're really staying there? With him?" "Yes. Hannah, I'm scared for you. Not just because of Ryan, but because you're getting involved with someone we know nothing about." She wasn't wrong to worry, but what she couldn't understand was how safe I felt here, despite the danger swirling outside the estate walls. Or maybe because of it. Franco's world was violent and complicated, but it was also oddly honest. No pretense, no hidden agendas, just clear lines and consequences. Franco started including me in parts of his life he'd previously kept separate. He took me to a community center in the Italian neighborhood of Portland, where teenagers practiced basketball in a gym that had his family's name on a plaque. An older woman hugged him when we arrived, speaking rapid Italian. "My grandmother would have loved you," Franco said as we watched the kids play. "She believed in using our resources to build something good. Your family funded this? My father started it. I've maintained it. These kids, they don't have much, but they have a safe place to go after school, meals, tutoring. Some of them will make it out of poverty because of this center." I saw the pride in his expression, the genuine care. This was the man who prayed every morning, who tried to balance the darkness of his work with light wherever he could find it. We also visited a restaurant on the waterfront where ex-convicts worked in the kitchen and dining room. Franco knew each person by name, asked about their families, listened to their struggles with finding housing and staying clean. "Society throws them away," he explained during the drive home. "One mistake and they're marked forever. I give them a second chance. Some succeed, some fail, but at least they have the opportunity." "Is this guilt?" I asked carefully. "Trying to atone for your other business?" "Partially, but also pragmatism. These people are loyal because I've shown them respect when no one else would. That loyalty is valuable." Everything with Franco had layers. Good intentions mixed with strategic thinking, compassion entangled with self-interest. It should have disturbed me more than it did. One afternoon, I found him in the library working through documents. He looked up as I entered, setting aside his papers. "I need to ask you something," I said, settling into the chair across from him. "The school wants me to decide about coming back permanently or taking a longer leave. Maybe until next semester. What do you want to do? I don't know. Teaching is my career, my identity. But I can't focus on AP literature when I'm constantly looking over my shoulder for Ryan. Franco was quiet for a moment. What if you could teach without the exposure of a public school? Private students, maybe. Or develop an educational program that you controlled. I don't have the resources for that. But I do. He leaned forward. I've been thinking about expanding the community center. Adding educational components. Tutoring programs for kids who are falling behind. You could design it, run it. Use your skills without the vulnerability of a public setting. The offer was generous, and clearly something he'd been considering. You'd fund that? The center already has my family's money. Adding education services makes sense. And it gives you purpose, independence. You wouldn't be hiding here. You'd be building something. The idea appealed more than I wanted to admit. A way to teach without fear, to contribute without becoming a target. I'd need time to develop curriculum, understand what the kids need. Take whatever time you need. The center isn't going anywhere. That night at dinner, Franco received a call that made his expression go cold. He excused himself, disappearing into his study. When he returned an hour later, tension radiated from every line of his body. Ryan posted bail, he said without preamble. He's back on the streets. My appetite vanished. Already? His lawyer is connected to the O'Sullivans. They're pushing for this, using Ryan as a proxy to get to me. Franco sat heavily in his chair. Joseph has teams tracking him, but I want you to stay on the property until we assess his next move. I've barely left anyway. I know. And I hate that this is your life now. He reached across the table, taking my hand. But we will end this, Hannah. I promise you that. The next few days passed in tense waiting. Ryan didn't approach the estate or make contact, but Joseph's reports showed him meeting repeatedly with known O'Sullivan associates. They were planning something. Franco spent long hours in his study or away on business. When he was home, I could see the calculation in his eyes, the strategy forming. He was preparing for war, and I was the reason. One evening, I found him in the chapel after midnight. He sat in the front pew, head bowed but not praying, just sitting in the silence. Can't sleep? I asked, sliding in beside him. Too much on my mind. Ryan and the O'Sullivans? Among other things. He turned to look at me, and in the candlelight his face seemed younger, more vulnerable. I'm trying to figure out how to protect you without becoming the monster you'll eventually hate. What does that mean? It means the solution to this problem involves actions that good people don't take, that good people shouldn't witness. I understood what he wasn't saying. To truly stop Ryan and the O'Sullivans, Franco would need to use methods that existed outside law and morality. Violence, threats, perhaps worse. I'm not as innocent as you think, I said quietly. I've spent months wishing Ryan would just disappear, imagining scenarios where he couldn't hurt me anymore. Those aren't the thoughts of a good person either. Thinking and doing are different. Are they? The intent is the same. Franco reached out, brushing hair from my face. I don't want you to carry the weight of what comes next. That's my burden. We're in this together. You keep saying that. So let me actually be in it with you, not sheltered from reality. He searched my face for a long moment. You're sure? Yes. Then tomorrow, Joseph will brief us both on what he's learned. All of it. No filters. And after that, we decide how to move forward. The next afternoon, the three of us gathered in Franco's study. Joseph spread photographs and documents across the desk, mapping out connections between Ryan and the O'Sullivans. Ryan has been staying in an O'Sullivan safe house, Joseph explained. He's receiving money, legal support, and operational assistance. In exchange, he's providing information about Miss Cooper and acting as a visible threat. Why haven't they moved more directly? I asked. If they want to use me against Franco, why rely on Ryan? Plausible deniability, Franco said. Ryan is a jealous ex-boyfriend with a documented history of harassment. If something happens to you, they can claim they had no involvement. It's psychological warfare disguised as domestic violence. Joseph nodded. They're testing your response, Franco. Seeing if you'll overreact and give them justification for retaliation, or if you'll show weakness by failing to protect someone under your care. Neither option is acceptable. which is why we need a third option, Joseph said. One that removes Ryan from the equation and sends a clear message to the O'Sullivans without starting open conflict. Franco's expression was unreadable. What do you suggest? Ryan violated his restraining order multiple times. With proper evidence and pressure in the right places, we can ensure his bail is revoked and he faces significant jail time. Meanwhile, we approach the O'Sullivans directly and negotiate terms. They won't negotiate, Franco said. They see weakness in my attachment to Hannah. Then we demonstrate it's not weakness, but motivation. Joseph pulled out another photograph, showing an O'Sullivan-controlled warehouse. Hit them where it costs. Make continuing this vendetta more expensive than backing down. Franco studied the image. That escalates things. They've already escalated by involving civilians. We're just responding in kind. The conversation continued, mapping out strategies and contingencies. I listened, fascinated and horrified by the clinical way they discussed violence and intimidation. This was Franco's world, where every action carried calculated risk and potential retaliation. Hannah, Franco said, drawing my attention. If we move forward with this, there's no going back. Things will happen that you can't unhear or unsee. Are you certain you want to be involved? I thought about Ryan's face in the school parking lot, the nail strips on the bridge, the months of fear and helplessness. Then I thought about the kids at Franco's community center, the workers at his restaurant, the careful balance he tried to maintain between darkness and light. I'm certain. Franco held my gaze for another moment, then nodded. Then we proceed. Joseph, start preparing. I want detailed plans by tomorrow night. After Joseph left, Franco pulled me close, wrapping his arms around me. I rested my head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. No matter what happens, he said quietly, you stay safe. That's non-negotiable. You too. I've survived worse than the O'Sullivans. That doesn't make me worry less. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. Then we'll worry together. 3 weeks of careful planning and tension culminated on a Friday evening. I'd been working on curriculum for the community center program when Jessica called. Her voice panicked. Hannah, I can't reach David. He was supposed to meet me after work 2 hours ago. His phone goes straight to voicemail. Ice flooded my veins. Where were you supposed to meet? That Italian restaurant downtown. The one where we had our anniversary. I ran to Franco's study. He was on the phone but ended the call immediately when he saw my face. Jessica's husband is missing. Franco's expression went cold. He dialed Joseph before I finished explaining, speaking in rapid commands. Within minutes, we had confirmation. David Turner had left his office at 5:30. His car was still in the parking garage. He'd never made it to the restaurant. The O'Sullivans took him, Joseph said over speakerphone. We're tracking now. Why David? I asked, though dread already supplied the answer. Leverage, Franco said grimly. They know Jessica is your closest friend. Taking her husband sends a message. My phone buzzed with an incoming video. Unknown number. Franco grabbed it before I could, his jaw clenching as he watched. He turned the screen toward me. David sat in a chair, hands bound, clearly frightened but unharmed. Behind him, 2 men I didn't recognize. The video had no audio, just David's terrified face, and a timestamp showing it was recorded 20 minutes ago. A text followed. Your choice, Bellini. The woman or the friend's husband. Midnight. Warehouse District, Pier 9. Come alone. They're forcing a decision, Joseph said. Classic intimidation tactic. Franco was already moving, grabbing his jacket and phone. Get the team ready. Full tactical. I want surveillance on that warehouse in 30 minutes. Franco? They said come alone. He turned to me, and the look in his eyes was absolutely lethal. I don't negotiate with people who take innocence. They want war. They'll get it. What about David? If you go in with force, I won't let them hurt him. But I also won't walk into a trap designed to eliminate me and leave you defenseless. He pulled me close, pressing a hard kiss to my forehead. Jessica needs to know. Call her. Bring her here. Maria will look after her while we handle this. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. Jessica arrived shaking and pale, collapsing into my arms the moment she walked through the door. We sat in the living room while Maria brought tea neither of us touched. This is my fault, I whispered. They took David because of me. No, Jessica said fiercely. They took David because they're monsters. You didn't do this, Hannah, but I had. By accepting Franco's protection, by falling for him, I'd painted targets on everyone I cared about. Franco and 8 men left the estate at 11. I watched from the window as their vehicles disappeared into the night, carrying weapons and tactical gear. Joseph had stayed behind to coordinate from Franco's study, multiple screens showing surveillance feeds. You should try to rest, Maria said gently. Mr. Bellini knows what he's doing, but I couldn't rest. Couldn't do anything except pace and worry and replay every decision that had led to this moment. At 11:45, Joseph called us into the study. They're in position. The warehouse is as expected, minimal guards outside. David is being held on the 2nd floor, northeast corner. 2 men with him, 3 more on the ground level. Only 5? Jessica asked. That seems too few. It's a trap, I said. They're expecting Franco to bring backup. They have more people waiting. Joseph nodded grimly. We've identified 12 additional hostiles in adjacent buildings. Classic ambush setup. Jessica gripped my hand. Can Franco's people handle that? We're about to find out. The next 20 minutes passed in agonizing silence, broken only by Joseph's quiet communications with the team. Then, chaos erupted. On the screens, I watched as Franco's men moved with military precision. Simultaneous entry from multiple points, disabling the ambush before the O'Sullivan crew could react. Gunfire briefly, loud enough to make me flinch despite the poor audio quality. Then silence. David is secure, Joseph reported. 2 targets down, rest in custody. Mr. Bellini is proceeding to the 2nd floor. More tense minutes. Then Joseph's radio crackled. Franco's voice, controlled but carrying authority. We have David. No serious injuries. 2 O'Sullivan lieutenants in custody, including the one who sent the video. We're extracting now. Relief crashed through me so intensely I nearly collapsed. Jessica sobbed, burying her face in her hands. They returned an hour later. David stumbled out of the car, bruised but walking on his own. Jessica ran to him, and they held each other while Franco approached me. He's okay. Scared, but unharmed. Thank you. The words felt inadequate for what he'd done. This isn't over, Franco said quietly. But we sent a message tonight. No one under my protection is an acceptable target. Inside, Maria had prepared food and medical supplies. David sat at the kitchen table while Franco's doctor examined his wrists where the ropes had cut into skin. I'm sorry, I told David and Jessica. I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. David looked at me, his usual calm demeanor shaken but not broken. You didn't drag us anywhere. We chose to stand by you. That's what friends do. He's right, Jessica added. Though I'll admit, I didn't expect it to involve actual kidnapping. The O'Sullivans will retaliate, Franco said, accepting coffee from Maria. Tonight was a victory, but it escalates things. David and Jessica, you're welcome to stay here until we resolve this, or I can arrange protection at your home. They exchanged glances. We'll go home, David said, but we'll take the protection. Smart choice. Franco pulled out his phone. I'll have 2 men outside your house 24/7. They'll be discreet but effective. After they left with their security detail, Franco and I were finally alone. He looked exhausted, tension still visible in the set of his shoulders. You could have been killed tonight, I said, but I wasn't. And neither was David, which was the point. The O'Sullivans will think twice before targeting civilians again. We captured 2 of their senior people tonight. That's leverage for negotiation. I moved closer, wrapping my arms around him. I don't know what I would have done if something had happened to you. He held me tightly. Nothing happened. We're safe. David's safe. That's what matters. But as we stood there in the quiet kitchen, I knew Franco was right. This wasn't over. Tonight had been a battle, not the war. And the O'Sullivans would respond. The question was how, and whether we'd be ready when they did. Joseph's intelligence network proved its worth within 48 hours. Ryan had been spotted at a motel near the Washington border, paid for with cash traced back to an O'Sullivan front company. Franco's team moved fast. I wasn't there for the capture, but Franco called me from the road. We have him. bringing him to a secure location for questioning. Is he hurt? No. And he won't be unless absolutely necessary. I know you need answers, Hannah. I'm going to get them. 4 hours later, Franco returned to the estate looking grim but satisfied. He found me in the library and sat heavily beside me. Ryan confirmed everything. The O'Sullivans approached him 3 months ago before the bridge incident. They offered money and support if he'd help them get to you. Knowing I'd feel responsible after saving your life, my stomach turned. So the bridge was always about you, not just Ryan's obsession. Both. Ryan's hatred gave them the perfect tool. They funded the sabotage, provided the nail strips, gave him technical assistance. But Ryan's the one who executed it, who wanted you dead even before they got involved. What about the insurance fraud? Franco's expression darkened further. $300,000 policy he forged 6 weeks before the bridge. If you died, he would have collected and disappeared, probably to Mexico where the O'Sullivans have connections. The casual calculation of my murder made me feel sick. Where is he now? Warehouse we control. Under guard. Joseph has all the evidence documented, statements recorded. We're turning everything over to the police through our contact in the department. Ryan will talk, implicate the O'Sullivans. That's the idea. But we have a more immediate problem. The 2 O'Sullivan lieutenants we captured during David's rescue have been talking too. Seems their leadership is furious about the botched kidnapping and wants to cut losses. What does that mean? They're willing to negotiate. Today, actually. Neutral ground, both sides bringing minimal security. Franco took my hand. This could end tonight, Hannah. All of it. Hope and fear warred in my chest. You trust them to negotiate in good faith? No. But I have leverage now. Ryan's testimony, their 2 lieutenants in custody, evidence of multiple crimes. The O'Sullivans can either deal or face a war they're not positioned to win. The meeting was set for 8 that evening, at a restaurant Franco owned downtown. Neutral in theory, but with the home field advantage of his territory. He insisted I stay at the estate with Maria and additional security. If this goes wrong, they might try to grab you again. I need you safe. Franco, be careful, please. He pulled me close, kissing me with an intensity that felt like promise, and goodbye rolled together. I'll come back. I always do. After he left, Jessica called. Her voice sounded steadier than it had in days. David told me what Franco's doing tonight. Trying to end this. Yeah, I'm terrified. Me too. But Hannah, David, and I talked. After everything that's happened, we understand why you're with Franco. He's not what we expected. What did you expect? A monster, honestly. But he risked his life to save David. That's not something monsters do. Her acceptance meant more than I could express. Thank you for not hating me. Never. You're my best friend. That doesn't change. 2 hours passed like decades. I tried reading, couldn't focus. Tried eating, had no appetite. Finally, Joseph emerged from Franco's study. It's going well. The O'Sullivans agreed to terms. They're signing documents now. What terms? They cede 3 territorial operations to Franco, pay substantial reparations for David's kidnapping, and agree that you and anyone connected to you are permanently off limits. In exchange, Franco releases their 2 men and agrees not to pursue further retaliation for past actions. That's really it? They just accept defeat? They're pragmatic. Continuing cost them more than conceding. Franco demonstrated he's willing to escalate, that he has the resources and intelligence to hurt them badly. Sometimes knowing when to fold is the smart play. Franco returned just after 10, looking exhausted but triumphant. I met him at the door, and he swept me into his arms. It's over. Signed, witnessed, binding. The O'Sullivans are out. And Ryan? Being transferred to police custody tomorrow morning with a complete file of evidence. The prosecutor I spoke with expects multiple charges. Attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy, stalking. He's looking at 20 years minimum. Relief crashed through me so powerfully I started crying. Franco held me while I shook, all the fear and tension of the past months finally releasing. You're safe now, he murmured. Really, truly safe. That night, for the first time since the bridge, I slept without nightmares. The next morning brought reporters. Someone had leaked news of Ryan's arrest and the charges against him. My name stayed out of the press, thanks to victim protection laws. but speculation ran wild about organized crime connections. Franco handled it with characteristic efficiency. His lawyers issued statements. The restaurant where negotiations occurred suddenly had no security footage from that night. Joseph ensured no connection could be traced between Franco's organization and Ryan's capture. The police are taking credit for excellent investigative work, Joseph reported with slight amusement. They've even suggested Ryan might flip on organized crime figures to reduce his sentence. Will he? I asked. No. The O'Sullivans have made it clear through channels that his family's safety depends on his silence. He'll serve his time quietly. Jessica and David visited that afternoon. David looked better, the bruises fading, his natural calm returning. We wanted to thank you properly, Jessica said to Franco. For saving David, for ending the threat. We know you didn't have to do any of it. Hannah matters to me. People she cares about matter by extension. Franco's amber eyes found mine. Besides, no one threatens what's mine. The possessiveness should have bothered me. Instead, it felt like safety. Over the next 2 weeks, life found a new normal. I officially resigned from the school and began building the educational program at Franco's community center. Jessica visited regularly, our friendship stronger for surviving crisis together. Franco and I fell into the rhythm of actual partnership. He taught me about his world, the careful balance of power and respect that kept his organization stable. I showed him mine, sharing books and ideas and the simple pleasure of quiet evenings. One night, 3 weeks after Ryan's arrest, Franco found me in the library. He held a small velvet box, and my heart stopped. It's not what you think, he said quickly, seeing my expression. Not yet, anyway. But I wanted you to have this. Inside was a delicate gold chain with a small cross pendant. Simple, beautiful. It was my grandmother's. She wore it every day, said it reminded her that faith wasn't about perfection, but about trying to be better. He took the necklace out, fastening it around my neck. You make me want to be better, Hannah. Every day. I touched the cross, feeling the weight of what he was really saying. This wasn't a proposal, but it was a promise, a commitment to whatever we were building together. I love you, I said, the words finally finding their way out. Franco's face transformed, tenderness replacing his usual guardedness. I've loved you since the bridge. Since I pulled you up and saw the fight in your eyes despite the fear. He kissed me then, gentle and deep. And I knew with absolute certainty that my life had irrevocably changed the night my car went through that guardrail. Not just because of the danger, but because it had led me here, to this man, this complicated love, this unexpected future. Ryan Mitchell would spend the next 2 decades in prison. The O'Sullivans had retreated to lick their wounds. And I had found something I'd stopped believing existed. Someone who would stand between me and the world's darkness, without asking me to be less than I was. 3 months had passed since Ryan's arrest. The trial was set for next spring, but the prosecutor assured us the evidence was overwhelming. Franco's lawyer had ensured my testimony could be given via video to protect my identity. The peace with the O'Sullivans held. Joseph's reports showed they'd honored their agreement, staying clear of Franco's territory and making no moves toward retaliation. Business had actually improved for Franco, with the seeded operations bringing in substantial revenue. My educational program at the community center launched in January to an enthusiastic response. 20 students enrolled in the first session, mostly teenagers who'd fallen behind in traditional schools. Teaching them felt different than my old job, more personal and rewarding. Franco proposed on a Sunday evening in February. We'd been walking through the estate gardens, the last of winter's chill still in the air. He led me to the chapel, now familiar ground where we'd shared so many quiet moments. Inside, candles illuminated the altar. Franco had been here earlier, preparing. Hannah Cooper, he said, turning to face me and dropping to one knee. 6 months ago, I pulled you off a bridge, and my life changed forever. You brought light into darkness I'd accepted as permanent. You challenged me, matched me, made me want to be the man you deserve. He pulled out a ring, simple and elegant, with a single diamond. Not ostentatious, just beautiful. Marry me. Build a life with me. Let me spend every day proving you made the right choice. Tears blurred my vision. Yes, Absolutely yes. The ring slid onto my finger perfectly. Franco stood and kissed me, both of us laughing and crying simultaneously. Jessica screamed when I called her with the news. "Oh my God, you're marrying the Mafia boss. He prefers businessman." "I'm sure he does. Hannah, are you happy? Really, truly happy?" I looked at Franco across the room, watching me with those amber eyes that had seen me at my worst and loved me anyway. I've never been happier. The wedding was planned for late April, 6 weeks away. Small, intimate, just family and close friends. Father Michael, the priest who'd known Franco's family for decades, agreed to perform the ceremony, despite understanding the full scope of Franco's business. "God's grace extends to all who seek it," he told us during our pre-wedding counseling. "Franco, you've done much in your life that grieves the Lord, but I've also seen your charity, your protection of the weak, your genuine faith. Marriage to Hannah is a new chapter. Make it count." Jessica helped me find a dress, cream silk that flowed rather than poofed. Simple, like everything else about the ceremony. Franco wore a dark suit and looked devastating. The chapel filled with people I'd come to know over the months. Maria, weeping openly. Joseph, stone-faced but with suspiciously bright eyes. Kids from the community center. Workers from Franco's restaurant. David, fully recovered and standing as one of Franco's groomsmen. Jessica stood beside me as maid of honor, squeezing my hand when I got emotional during vows. "I, Hannah, take you, Franco, to be my husband, to stand with you through light and shadow, to love the complicated man you are, to build something honest and real in this messy life we've chosen." Franco's voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly, taking mine. "I, Franco, take you, Hannah, to be my wife, to protect you always, to honor the strength that first caught my attention, to thank God every day for the moment our paths crossed. Father Michael blessed us, pronounced us married, and Franco kissed me with such tenderness that several people in the congregation wiped their eyes. The reception happened in Franco's garden, transformed with lights and flowers. Music played, people danced, and for one perfect evening, the complications of our lives faded into joy. "You did it," Jessica said, hugging me tightly. "You found your person in the most unlikely place." "I really did." Franco's family embraced me completely. His uncle, a man in his 70s with Franco's eyes, pulled me aside. "You're good for him. I see it in how he carries himself now. Less burdened. Thank you for that." 3 months after the wedding, I woke feeling nauseous. Maria noticed immediately. "When was your last cycle?" I counted back and realized with shock that I was 6 weeks late. "Oh my God," she smiled knowingly. "I'll send someone to the pharmacy." The test was positive. Then another. And another, just to be sure. Franco was in his study when I found him. He looked up as I entered, immediately reading something in my expression. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I'm pregnant." He stared at me for a full 5 seconds. Then he stood, walked around the desk, and dropped to his knees in front of me. His hands went to my still flat stomach, his forehead resting against it. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you." I ran my fingers through his hair. This powerful, dangerous man reduced to gratitude and awe. "We're having a baby." He looked up, and I saw tears tracking down his face. A baby. Our baby. That night, he held me gently, one hand never leaving my stomach as if protecting what grew there. We talked about names, nurseries, what kind of parents we wanted to be. "I want better for our child than what I had," Franco said. "The family business, the violence, the moral compromises. I want them to have choices I didn't. We'll give them that. Together." Jessica and David visited the next day, David bringing flowers and Jessica bringing excitement. "A baby Bellini! This is amazing." She hugged me carefully as if I might break. "How's Franco handling it?" He cried, actually cried. "That man really loves you." "I know. I really love him too." Looking back at the month since that night on the bridge, from the terror of that ledge to the joy of this moment, felt surreal. Ryan was imprisoned, paying for his crimes. The O'Sullivans had backed down, their threat neutralized. My career had transformed into something more meaningful than I'd imagined. And Franco, the man who'd saved my life in every possible way, was now the father of my child. I stood in the garden that evening, watching sunset paint the sky gold and pink. Franco came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about? That night on the bridge? How terrified I was. How certain I was going to die. And now?" I leaned back against him, feeling the solid strength that had never failed me. "Now I'm more alive than I've ever been." His lips brushed my temple. "Good, because this is just the beginning, Hannah. Our beginning." In the distance, the chapel bells rang for evening prayer. Franco would go soon to kneel before the altar, thanking God for grace he felt he didn't deserve. And I would wait here, one hand on my stomach, thinking about the future we were building together. A future born from tragedy, forged in danger, and secured by a love neither of us had expected but both of us had chosen. The hand that pulled me from the abyss had never let go, and I had no intention of ever releasing it either.